Make sure you check out our sponsor over at 714 Tickets. They take pride in providing their customers with transparent pricing and excellent service. With 714 Tickets, you don't have to worry about hidden fees or surprises at checkout. The price you see is the price you pay. Plus, their team is dedicated to ensuring that you have the best shopping experience possible. And as a special thank you, they're offering a 10% discount on your purchase as well as entering you in a drawing for a free Halos jersey. Also, 5% cash back on your purchase. Only when you use the promotional code HEATY at checkout. That's HITI, HEATY. Get ready to shop with confidence and discover great deals today over at 714 Tickets.
Here we go then. Hey, welcome into another episode of Halos in the Infield, the podcast, as we are going to be able to, unfortunately, dive deep into the Miami series that just passed and sum up the homestand, which we went 5-4. Usually that sounds good, but we'll tell you why it's not. And then we'll also talk about what's coming up next on the horizon, which is a road trip, which includes the Chicago White Sox, which we'll preview and maybe touch on the Houston series moving along. But I'm your host, Todd Fox, with the other two hosts of the show.
Fernando.
Yes, who's no longer
Rob.
the Lone Star. Oh, and go ahead.
And Rob, sorry, no longer Lone Star. I mean, what happened?
Well, I'm just in California for right now, but I mean, a great sorrow has came upon me because tomorrow I'll be back in Texas.
Yeah,
Hey, the bear goes everywhere.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what you have to do for work, man. So the traveling man will continue his travels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, it was nice to be back in California for a while, and it was nice to see, a lot of familiar faces yesterday at the suite, man. That was a good time.
Yeah, that was hella fun, and it was good to have drinks with our boy Randy. Just missed Rob there and a few others, but we'll get together very soon. I have a feeling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the tailgate at least. So
Yeah.
once again, except for Rob, again.
My buddy's wedding, man. I'm sorry. I'll try to cut out, but never goes over well.
It'll be
No,
it'll be the second tailgate. Probably watch. You'll see later in the year, especially if we're out of it. And we'll get to that. Anyway, let's talk about what happened, guys, because I want to say first off, 5-1 start to the homestand, sweeping the Red Sox, getting back at them, taking 2 out of 3 from a first place Minnesota Twins team. Felt really good. And our optimism between me and Fernando was, hey, I think we could sweep the Marlins or at least take 2 out of 3, do the Rally Chris special and finish 7-2 on the homestand. What are your guys' thoughts finishing 5-4 after everything?
I think if you take 5-4, like, in a vacuum where nobody knows what happened, you come out of a coma that lasted, the entire homestand, and, you tell someone, hey, it was 5-4 against the Red Sox, the Marlins, and the Twins. Somebody would have been like, okay, hey, that's not bad. And then when you tell them the context, like, well, it started really good and then it ended really bad, then it's kind of like, oh, well, that's not a good homestand. So, you and I predicted a sweep. We were kind of right, just not the sweep that we hoped for.
True. What'd you think, Rob?
It's just disappointing to see. I mean, like you said, you look at it overall, it doesn't look bad, but just the way we played, coming off of an ultimate high and then finding that low real quick and just seeing the rest of the division, the AL West doing well. Because you look at last 10, we're 6-4. Everyone else is 7-3, 8-2, minus the Oakland A's 0-10, right? You don't want to be part of that. But anyways, you quickly fell out of third place contention. Now you're a half game back, not a lot, but it hurts because, like you said the whole time, Houston's going to be there in the end. Seattle's going to be there in the end. The question is can the Rangers sustain it? And you go to a series like this, team below 500 in the Marlins, man, they didn't know it was a killer fish, but all of a sudden they got us right quick, and we beat ourselves. Don't get me wrong at all. We thought you're going to turn that corner, and now you're taking 2 steps back.
I agree. And here's one thing that I'll ask you guys real quick before we dive into the Marlins series. Texas, since you brought them up, I want you guys' opinion. You know what mine is. I've rattled that off a lot on the post game. But I want to ask you guys, on paper, are the Angels roster better than the Rangers?
I think it depends on what portion of the roster we're talking about. I mean, their starting pitching has been very solid so far for them. I mean, we've been getting tagged constantly by people saying, like, man, we should have got Nathan Eovaldi. We should have really gone all in trying to get him. He's been a great signing for Texas, and he's one of the biggest reasons why they've been so dominant and where they are. We're at the point now where we're having to acknowledge, like, okay, well, they're a legitimate playoff contender. Once they get to the playoffs, who knows what's going to happen? But as of right now, we're at the point where we're 2 months into the year and they're still there, let alone still beating some solid teams.
Rob?
Yeah, I mean, before we talked about one podcast, I thought they had the starting pitching to sustain it. It was that middle part getting to that closer. And even Will Smith himself as a closer has shown that he's not really dependable on it. But I look at it this way too. They're in a new ballpark. It's a pitcher's ballpark. There's some good hitters on that team who in the past have been good. And yeah, Nathan Eovaldi, should we have signed him? It was such a big risk at the time. Guys coming off an arm injury. And as an Angel fan and everything, we're always scarred by that. Guy coming off an arm injury, do you really want to take that risk? And then you get a guy on Tommy John, dead money. We have dead money all over the place right now with guys on the IL or guys not producing. But I still think offensively, man, they have what it takes. You look at these guys, it's just potential with Garcia out there, Seager's out there. Those guys just put the ball in play. Marcus Semien, they make things happen. And you know what the thing is? They don't take a lot of pitches. They don't take strikes down the middle. Where you kind of looking at that now compared to what we do on paper, we're better hitting wise. But in actuality, they're out hitting us. Why? Because they have a philosophy. They have a game plan going up there. As we've seen, I mean, going this whole series, you just watch these guys taking pitches down the middle and then taking or swinging at pitches way out of the zone. I think they have what it takes to sustain a second place finish. I don't think at first place. I think Houston's coming in strong, is going to bowl them over pretty quickly here. But I do see them contending for the wild card and staying in the wild card for playoffs.
Okay, then my second question to you guys about the Rangers, because I like those takes, is the fact that Bruce Bochy was out there. Did we know that he was out there, or did he have a deal with Texas and he only would come in? Maybe they were the only ones talking to him. But hindsight being what it is, and we'll talk a little bit about the coaching aspect with the Angels. He, in my opinion, and I want to see if you guys agree or disagree or have a different take, has gotten the absolute most out of Texas so far in just the first year, where I thought this would be a Bochy thing next year.
He's been one of the best managers in baseball for, the better part of the last, decade and a half. Say what you want. Well, he also had some clunkers with the Giants. Yeah, but anytime you win 3 World Series in the span of 6 years, I don't care if you don't make the playoffs for the rest of that decade. I'll take 3 World Series in 10 years.
Yep.
I don't care if we don't win a single other game, out of those non-playoff years. Great. We went 0 and 162. Cool. I got my 3 rings. I don't care. Bruce Bochy has always been a great manager. He was even a decent manager with the Padres. I mean, he turned that 98 wild card team into a legitimate playoff contender. They made the World Series, got the Padres through a couple of bad team years, and then he kind of got fired for Bud Black, who was another good manager for the Padres. But I that's a topic for a different day. But, you see it again. But before I let Rob go, I also just want to say I don't think that it's a good idea for the Angels to get these Bruce Bochys, these Joe Maddons, these guys who are established, because we've seen what happens. Mm-hmm. Do they have success elsewhere? Sure. I think the best thing the Angels need to do, find a guy, stick with the guy, ride it out with that guy. Look what happened with Mike Scioscia. He was a nobody backup catcher for the Dodgers, came over, created a winning culture for the Angels, and we rode that hot wave for a while. Got us through, some great teams, got us through some bad teams. Unfortunately, he just kind of rode the course here in Anaheim a little bit too long, and most people will agree that he was just here maybe 2-3 years too long. But I think the stopgap managers need to stop here.
Agreed. Rob?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Exactly. You need a guy in here who needs to build a philosophy. And a philosophy is not built in 2 or 3 years. Heck, it's not built 1 year for sure. You're going to need a good 5-year plan and ride it out with him. I mean, this guy was in San Diego since '95. Dude, I was 4 years old when this guy started, right? Looking at it now, and I was 15 by the time he left and went to the Giants. They gave him that huge window. And the Giants, the same thing. Yeah, he had those years where he was down, but he put in philosophy. And then I looked up, because I remember this in high school. Coach brought it up. He has 4 leadership lessons from Bruce Bochy that he coaches by and lives by. The first one was keep your team focused. He says you drift mentally, that's for sure, because you're not putting all runs on the board all the time. Is that you always play these tight games, so you have to keep focused. 2 was always do what's best for the team. 3, know what people are good at, and that I want to talk about right after. And then 4, put your people in a position to succeed. 3 and 4 we have not done in Anaheim since Socha was here in the 2000s runs. We are not putting guys in a position to succeed. We don't know what our guys are good at because you had Mike Socha at the end of his years, and everyone criticized him. He was a small ball coach who manufactured runs, and you gave him nothing but home run hitters who did not manufacture runs, did not steal bases and everything, didn't do the little things. Now, vice versa, you go and get a coach who's used to doing that. All the other things, right? Manufacturing runs. What happens? You still have these big time hitters. You chase an Anthony Rendon. Not that I wasn't happy that we had him. When we got him at the time, I was ecstatic, right? Oh, we got him. But did he fit the philosophy the Angels were looking for to build around Mike Trout, who says he's a 5-tool player? Chasing managers like this won't help you. I agree. You need to chase a manager who's going to help what you have. And what do we have in our system right now? Good young pitching who needs to be developed. We have hitters who are young, undisciplined, but need that kind of right track and be pushed a certain way. Shohei Ohtani right now, people are going to hate on this take here. He's selfish. I do not like him right now as an Angel. I cannot wait for him to leave at this point in time. I don't like that he gets to decide when he pitches. I don't like his undisciplined at-bats at the plate. Sure, does he hit home runs every once in a while and help the team win and get those little hits here and there? Of course, absolutely. But how many times is he flailing out of the box, taking fastballs down the middle, then the very next pitch chases that slider away? Trout's closely coming into that conversation as well, too, taking those good pitches. I understand you like to take the first pitch, you rarely swing. But guess what, Trout? Everyone knows that. So they're grooving these fastballs down. There's such thing as scattering reports. Granted, I don't know if the Angels have used one in a long time because clearly our play doesn't show that. But you can see, if that's your MO, that Trout, you don't swing on the first pitch, what are you going to do as a pitcher? I'm going to groove a fastball right down the middle.
Yep.
Right? That's all these guys are doing. But look at these philosophies overall. You need a manager who's, I'm going to be an advocate for Benji Gill. Block out the outside noise. You're not worried about anything else. You're going to coach your way. And if you succeed, you succeed. If you fail, you're going to fix those failures until you get success.
And I'll say this, those are all valid points because, right now, as far as Bruce Bochy is concerned, like Fernando brought up and you brought up too, not only does he have a track record of winning, and I get where Fernando's saying we need someone hungry that's going to know the system, analytics, perfect balance. But like you said, a philosophy, Rob, too, where again, we don't have that philosophy. And just with a couple, that you brought up with Trout and Ohtani not being able to hit the ball, they're driving the ball too much, bunch of home run hitters. Miami sort of just came in here and schooled us, and again, sort of like what Washington did when they took a victory from us, on how to hit, how to be patient, work walks, make the pitcher throw pitches. And you don't have to worry about always hitting a home run. You can do the small things. I mean, they bunted several times because that's why I bring up Texas. Texas is known like you would think they're mashing the ball and killing people nightly. But if you watch any of their games, especially the ones they played us, they were bunting the ball, sacrificing double steals, hit and runs, all the things that MLB has given us tools to use. And we're just not taking advantage. We're still doing the dumb things. And also a team like Texas and a team like Miami, although they're 500, they play non-selfish baseball and they don't make errors. Both those teams did not make errors when they played us. Miami played airless ball. They sacrificed. They took whatever we gave them. And still in that series, they were something like, I want to say 10 for about the last 34 with runners in scoring position. So they weren't exactly killing it. They just had a lot of traffic. But the times that they did score those runs and got the hits, they made the most out of them. And I think with the Angels, if you looked at it, they were something like 4 for, I want to say 40 in with runners in scoring position. I mean, again, they only did it a few more times than we did, but they made it count. And that's what the Angels just don't do.
I want to touch on something that Rob said, expand on it, and ask you guys something. So Rob started talking about Ohtani being a little more selfish lately in terms of a batter, and right now it's no secret the guy is scuffling in a big time way. I think like he struck out like 13 times lately in his last like 30-ish at bats. It's something like that. I saw the stat. Don't quote me on that, but I know he's in a double-digit strikeout zone right now. So did you guys think we would be in an era right now actively where there seems to be a split, and it seems to be more of a 60-40 split? It seems like most Angels fans are currently in the we need to trade Ohtani train. And then you have the 40% who are Ohtani fans. And that's the reason, like the Angels who are like, no, we have to re-sign him. And yesterday in the suite was very telling to me, Todd. It seemed like almost everyone in the suite was on the we need to trade Ohtani camp. Not because he's not a good player, but because I think it's most Angels fans, true Angels fans have kind of already made up their mind. Like, okay, this guy's probably not staying. We need to get something for him before we get nothing for him. Will we get what we would have last year at the trade deadline? Of course not. But at least you're not walking away empty-handed. And I think a lot of Angels fans are also in the camp of if we ride it out this year, we lose Ohtani and we don't make the playoffs, this organization needs a harsh rebuild. And you and I have talked ad nauseum. 2016, 2017 was the year where the hard reset button should have been hit. I think, because Billy Epler signed right before the 2016 offseason. We made the Yanel Escobar trade. We made the Andrelton Simmons trade. So we kind of went in at that time, rebuilt on the fly, as he called it. And he used to call it like we're intending to contend. And that's what Billy Epler said for those 4 years he was here, 5 years. 4 years. It was 4 years. Anyway. We never have hit. When was the last time, guys, that we hit the hard reset button? I don't think the Angels really ever have, right?
I don't think since probably 96, 97 around there. And we're not. No, I take that back. We were getting guys and still trying to go with your Mo Vaughns and stuff like that. So yeah, I can't remember the last time they hit a hard reset. It's probably maybe 89, 90.
When that was before my time.
Yeah, when they had nobody on the roster.
And then you see these other teams, the Cubs, the Royals, who won World Series by tearing everything down.
Yeah, completely. They went bare covered and just tore completely down.
Exactly. And, there's a lot of organizations that never have to do that. I mean, the Dodgers come to mind. The Astros are another team. When they first came over, they were dog water. When they left the NL Central and came over to the AL West, so they rebuilt and they've been good for a long time now. Yeah. So we're in a situation, man, where the Angels really, really need to get an identity. And I think that trading Ohtani and not re-signing him for what he's probably going to get might be the best thing for this organization.
I'll just say this real quick before Rob goes on, because I know he's been waiting a second, but I just want to get this on my chest. Like, as far as being a football fan and relating this to what happened with my team, we were forever 6-10, 7-9, 8-8 for about 6 or 7 years. Couldn't draft anybody because we're always picking in the middle of the draft. Couldn't get any really good players. And it wasn't until he decided right before Mike Holmgren came, hey, we need a hard reset. And what happened 2 years later, Mike Holmgren comes, and the team starts to flourish and they take off because they said, okay, we're going to suck for a couple of years. We're going to have a plan. And they built it up and they went along. And like you mentioned, the other baseball teams, the Angels need to do that. And I think with Ohtani, I think like Halo Joe's a huge Halo honk, I wouldn't call him a Halo honk, but he's a huge Angels fan. And even he said, I want to enjoy him while he's here, but it's best we get what we can for him. Let's not let him walk. And if it's the case and we're out of the postseason or just not flourishing or not flirting very much with a wild card, we got to get rid of him, dude. And we got to, and it's not the popular opinion. We're going to lose a lot of fans. A lot of people are going to, call the Angels backstabbers for letting him go or trading him or stupid or whatever. But in the end, dude, even if we get like 1 or 2 players back that can potentially be something, it's more than what we would have got if we let him walk.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. At some point in time, you have to look at it is when we're going to rebuild and when's the hard reset hit. Don't say we're one player, two players away. Oh, we need a pitcher. How many times have we heard that? But
Yep.
then last year, in a 14 game tailspin of a freaking complete loss of everything, that's not a rebuild. When you're finishing consistently below 500 or at 500, you're not one or two players away. You're talking about overhauling almost to the point where I would even consider Trout. You got to
Todd
start
said the
looking at what
same thing yesterday.
the value of Trout in the end is. Mike Trout at 32 years old, right? He's 31, 32, whatever age. He's right
31.
31 years old. Is he going to take you in the next 5 years to the World Series? And if the answer is no, because you need more than that, you get him, trade him away, and take what you can from him, the whole thing. Just like the Ohtani trade. The guy's walking. Even if you get one player, you'll be good. If honestly, Dodgers, you want him, send Bobby Miller over and we'll take him in a heartbeat. Give us something to build off of.
I want Dustin May also.
Arm problems, man. I don't want nobody with arm problems at all. If you have an arm problem, you can stay where you're at right there. Because look at Urias. Urias is unhappy as a Dodger. We'll take him too. We'll take him off your hands, take Ohtani. Because in the end, not only getting one player, you're getting three, in my opinion. Because you're going to save that $50 to $60 million a year, whatever Ohtani wants. In that, you can invest that and put those into 2 to 3 other players over the life of the contracts for them. And you have good young guys here. It just can't let the guy walk. And granted, I'm a huge Angel fan, right? Mm-hmm. I'm willing to trade arguably one of the best players to ever play the game in Mike Trout in order to have success. Because at the end of the day, did the Red Sox win the World Series with Ted Williams on it? No. They had benefited from a huge trade from him and get a whole bunch of players if it was like how it is today, right? Granted, back then it wasn't like that. But you got to look at it and just be realistic. But it goes back to ownership. It goes back to not having a manager. And a lot of the things, too, I always wonder about it because we talked about before in Japan, it's you pitch every 6th or 7th day. Ohtani decides when he pitches. He can pitch the 5th day, pitch the 6th day, or he can even bounce you whenever he wants and come in on his 4th day off if there's a day off in between. What ace wants to come in here with that there? What quality pitcher is going to come to the Angels? And if he's hurting you on that end, get rid of him, get out of here. This is a team game. There's no I in team, but there is a me, and he's clearly showing that to me. That's what I think, at least.
And real quick, look at what's happened with Sandoval. I mean, who knows if that affects his starts? I know he only gave up 2 runs the other day, but he was starting before Ohtani. Now he's starting after him. They bumped Jaime into the rotation for him, and they bumped him out. Yeah. So it's affecting guys. Their
rhythm and routines. Starting pitchers are creatures of habit.
Yeah. One real quick thing I'll say, and I'll ask you guys this real quick, unless Fernando had another question. But just real quick, dude. Like, let's just say, going to what Rob was saying and what we were talking about, Fernando. If they were to say, okay, let's trade Ohtani to get some players, and then in the offseason they find a trade partner and recoup what they can from Trout. Hire a new manager with all the influx of young talent we have is, coming into the bullpen lately, starting pitching. We're obviously going to lose guys like Urshela or Renfroe, or maybe we resign them if those contracts are gone. Do you think we have enough with that kind of hard reset, losing our 2 pillars in the organization, to still contend, or you think it would take a 2 to 3 year plan?
So let me say this. If we're in a situation where a hard reset happens, we're talking about 3 to 6 years of the worst baseball we've ever seen in our lives. And the problem is the Angels don't have any trade pieces. Mike Trout's value, no matter what, is not what it would have been 5-6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I get, 5 or 6 years ago, there's no way on God's green earth I would have ever traded Mike Trout because he was a cornerstone of the organization. And before Ohtani, he was our guy. He was the guy. And as of right now, I would hate to see Mike Trout play for any other organization. Todd and I will tease the guy because he's not clutch in, the bottom of the 9th inning like yesterday. But that doesn't change the fact that this guy is arguably the best baseball player I've seen from beginning to end of his career. So with that being said, I would hate to see him on the Phillies, let's just say. But at the end of the day, who else in this organization where we stand, let's just say, Ohtani's a non-factor because you traded him. Who else where we sit right now has trade value? Because most of these guys are on 1-year deals. Urshela's gone. God, who's he?
Renfroe.
Yeah, Renfroe. That was exactly the name I was looking for. He's gone. Taylor Ward doesn't have any trade value right now. That's all I keep seeing in the comments. Oh, well, we need to trade Ward, trade Ward. The guy's not worth a lick at the current moment. He's batting 230. You know, he isn't reliable in the outfield. Nobody wants to take a chance on that right now. You know, maybe part of the package, sure. You know, you're not going to get much for Adele right now. You know, if you package him with somebody else, maybe. Rengifo, not worth anything right now. The only guys who are worth anything is, you know, if Ohapi was still healthy, sure, he's worth something, but you're not trading Ohapi because he's a cornerstone. Neto, he's probably worth a lot right now, but you're not trading him because he's a cornerstone, especially without Otani or Trout. So where we currently sit, the Angels are legitimately screwed for the foreseeable future. Who are you going to trade? Sandoval, Detmers? Those guys are worth something, but those are guys you view as cornerstones. Walsh isn't worth anything. What are you going to get for him?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. No matter which way you look right now in that clubhouse, is there pieces? Sure. But the pieces that are worth anything, the Sandovals, the Detmers, the Netos, you don't want to trade those guys. And if you do, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's a catch-22. You either have to take this down to the bare studs and become the Oakland A's for the next 3 to 6 years and be okay with that, or you're going to have to keep doing what we're doing now and rebuilding on the fly. So either way, guys, we're in a situation where this is going to be 3 to 5 years of sucking. I can live with that. If they, A, commit to Perry, which there's a lot of Angels fans who are going to get pissed at me for saying that, but at that point, you have a direction. I can live with a direction. I'm an Arizona Coyotes fan. We have Bill Armstrong. Bill Armstrong took the Coyotes down to the absolute bare studs, traded Oliver Ekman-Larsson, the captain, got a king's ransom. And he's made these other moves that are questionable, but now the Coyotes have like 47 draft picks over the next 4 years. You can't trade draft picks in baseball. A lot of people don't know that. You cannot. So the best thing you can do is take your team down to the absolute studs, become the Oakland A's, be mediocre for 3 to 6 years, but at least you have some direction.
Yeah, no, I agree. You exactly what Fernando said. And you need to do something here because your current process isn't working, signing these big names. And to add that, I'd rather than be more like a Tampa Bay, because I don't know can you guys tell me without looking up, besides Randy Rosarina, name me 3 players that play for Tampa Bay.
Glass now.
Margot.
It's tough, right?
Yeah, Margot.
Mm-hmm.
Flores? I forgot his first name.
Yeah, look that one up. I'm not sure there's a Flores.
I think there is. Wander Flores?
Oh, Wander Franco.
Wander Franco. Okay, that's what it was.
So now you take that into this whole philosophy of rebuild, and look what they've done. They've been in contention for 5 years plus. They'll have a down year or two. Then they're contention for 5 years plus, down year and two. The Angels, we're not even sniffing the playoffs.
Yeah.
But Rob, what's the difference there with the Rays? Why are the Rays successful?
Because they have a game plan going in. They have a philosophy that you have to buy into to get there, and they only target those players that work around that philosophy. They don't go for those big names.
And they have good scouts. I mean, they don't
great scouts and great player development.
Yeah, they don't put money into that stadium, but they sure as I mean, we're not putting any money into the stadium either. Let's take some of that scoreboard money and let's put it into scouts because that's what I've paid for.
Mm-hmm.
We have a friend who'd be upset that you said that. You met him yesterday.
Sorry.
Well, Todd, you said how many times that the scouting staff for the Angels was diminished completely when Artie took over. And I do believe that Tampa Bay has the second or third highest payroll for scouts because they have a plan and they're executing that plan. And let's be honest, in Florida, you're paying these scouts, what, 80 grand a year, maybe 90,
yeah.
Which goes a lot further than it does here in California.
Livable wage, yeah.
Exactly, livable wage overall. And it's an Anaheim thing, man, because I'm a huge Ducks fan. The Ducks have failed to rebuild, and they needed to for a long, long time, stuck with these older guys, and we're kind of doing the same thing. And like you said, I wouldn't trade Trout 5 years ago. I trade him today to see what's out there because this guy's hitting 270, 280. Still, I still think in my heart, just as an Angel honk and the Trout honk, he's the best player of all time. I like him in situations. I think he does well every single game. And even when he's not hitting, he's doing the little things that matter, hustling every time, ground ball, right? You see him sprinting it out, chasing balls down, throwing it in, doing the right things. But in that, he's at the wrong side of 30 for us. We're on the wrong side of the organization, what we needed to do. and all these young guys have no value. All these young guys have the value. All these old guys have no value. And to go, like you said, you can't trade Ward, cannot trade Rengifo, can't trade Adele, Tyler Anderson, Aaron Loop. All those guys are little small pieces that are dumps in a trade when you give a huge name. If you give Shohei Ohtani, you say, hey, we'll give you Shohei, but you got to take these contracts for us. And those other teams will. They'll take them and DFA them the next day.
That's what I would. That's, you know what? That's a good point that I didn't think about. I wonder if we could at least trade Ohtani, get a prospect or two, and convince a team to take one of these bad contracts, especially the teams that don't mind, overpaying. I'm looking at the Mets, but they're not doing amazing where we currently stand. Maybe at the trade deadline.
Well,
the Dodgers would do it in a freaking heartbeat.
Well, see, that would be the one thing you'd have to do it. You'd have to do a deal with the devil. And would the Angels do that? Because my thing would be this, and I'll probably take some slander for this too, although it just depends on who the fan is. I'm obviously not a Rendon fan, but if you're at that point where it's like, look, you can have Shohei Ohtani, we'll take those two prospects, and all you got to do is eat the contract of Rendon. Would you do
Nobody's taking that deal, dude. We're talking about $100 million. Nobody's paying essentially $130 million for Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, but they're taking him as a rental right now. You know what I mean? Like, so. I mean,
okay, but who has that payroll? Who's trying to contend? Because once again, if we're talking the Dodgers, the Mets, the Padres, any of these kind of teams, the Rendon, you're going to be paying him $36 million for the next 4 years.
But they could
3 years and whatever he's owed this year.
They could value him in their system. What if they say, "Hey, man, he'll hit better with us"?
Dude, the only way you get someone to take Rendon is if you give up Zach Neto, a healthy Ohapi, maybe even Trout, because they need a long-term commitment to get someone to take an $100 million thing. Because all I ever see, and I'm sure you guys see it too, because you guys comment on our question of the day, is, well, they need to trade Rendon or any of the he's injured posts. Well, we need to find a trade partner. Nobody's taking Rendon unless you give up a giant piece. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That is franchise-changing money.
Yeah, or you got to eat half that contract and you're going to pay for your guy to compete against you.
Exactly. And what's going to happen if we do that? That's probably when he gets healthy, and that's when we're talking about Josh Hamilton keeping us out of the 2015 playoffs.
Yeah. I mean,
that was a highlight of that season when he hit a home run when the Angels were still paying him for the Texas Rangers, which ended up costing us that playoff run.
Mm-hmm. You look at it this way too with Ohtani. If you trade him at the trade deadline, he gets paid $30 million a year. Divide that by 162, it's $185,000 per game. And you give 60 games left, team's only going to pay him $11 million. It's not a huge, $11 million to possibly win a World Series. The Dodgers pay that up front. So I'm sure you could dump another contract, an Aaron Loop contract on them real quick. Hell, they may even want Tyler Anderson back. Even though I was wrong about him now, I think he's turned that corner and figured it out a little bit because he's been pitching pretty well the last couple starts. But yeah, overall, no one's going to take Rendon. No one's going to take any of these lame contracts. The Angels got to go bare studs overall. And then you got to look at it this way. Sandoval and those guys, what are they left? 1 year left in their rookie contracts? Mm-hmm. Do they want to stay?
Let me look.
I think Patrick Sandoval rebuild. Has 2. You have 2? Yeah, you go to rebuild and you get a disgruntled young guy there, and they want to leave too. So you got to find guys who are willing to come into this and rebuild. And I think a couple years ago, Sandoval and those guys would.
He's not a free agent until 2027, Rob.
Oh, wow. So
he just entered arbitration this year.
So he's stuck with us. That's good. That's a good thing, at least for us.
Well, yeah, but once again, that's a guy who would look at the cornerstone of a future rotation, but he's also one of your only guys right now that has trade value. That's what I'm saying. The Angels are in such a bad position, and that's what happens when you have a front office that's not committed to the minor league system, because for years – we were signing, the Pujols, the Hamiltons, the CJ Wilsons, which were costing us those first-round draft picks. Nowadays, if you sign a guy who declined a qualifying offer, it costs you a second or third-round pick. Not to say that's still not a hit to your franchise, but that's a big difference between a first-rounder. And, for anybody who's naive and thinks that doesn't matter, look where we are. Mm-hmm. Look where this organization is. We are completely screwed right now, and it sucks to say. And for anyone who's going to click off and be like, these guys are idiots, we're a podcast who covers this page for free, let alone the fact that, I mean, we have invested cohesively thousands of dollars into covering this team. And the fact that we're saying, hey, we should really do a hard rebuild and we're committed to covering a crappy team for 3 to 6 years tells you everything. Because we want to see winning baseball.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a direction and you don't have a game plan, there's really, I mean, you're just going season to season to do what they've done the last 8 years. And the last 8 years is just patchwork and see what happens. Throw it against the wall, see what happens. If anything sticks, then stick with it. But it leaves you in situations where this year, at least you were able to be like, okay, you know, we're miles ahead at certain points of what we had last year. We can let some of these minor leaguers sit down there and get better. We don't have to rush them up. But, you know, lately injury has changed that narrative. But, you know, for the most part, we thought the pitching should stay in some sort of cohesiveness, and it has. But the hitting's been bad, and there's been errors been made. So it's like to me, this mediocre season, in a season where we are kind of screwed, whether we choose to contend and just keep putting things, you know, adding pieces, or we just do a hard reset, and then the expiring contracts and everything with it, we actually do have a team that can compete right now, but it's glaring. Like, I don't know if you guys see it. I just see no discipline, no accountability on this team. You know, the pitchers aren't coming out there like what we were talking about in the suite the other day with this John Lackey, you know, type attitude, or Jared Weaver type attitude, like holding guys accountable and themselves. The hitters look very lazy, like Ward up there, you know, flat swing. It just seemed like I was willing to give Marcus Thames a chance, you know, like to go out there and switch philosophies and get scouting reports, like Rob said. It doesn't appear to be happening. The same miscues, the same terrible at bats are constant with this team. And I think that there's also things that need to be tweaked on pitching, because we're throwing sweepers, you know, over the plate on 0-2 counts when we should be trying to get them to chase, you know, and with 2 outs, it just doesn't seem that there's that mentality of, hey, let's end the inning quickly. No, it's let's just throw a fastball down the middle, see what happens, and we give up hits, home runs. That kind of stuff is killing this team.
Yeah, it is. And there's one thing, and I remember when I was 15 years old, Bud Black was holding a count, and I went there, and the Angels don't do this anymore. He called it a 5-spot fastball. And I was like, what's a five-spot fastball? The black corner of the plate to the next batter's box line, the inside of that line. There's that little groove right in there. And a hitter will chase that pitch on an 0-2 count if it's a fastball, because they don't want to get it blown by them. And he called it a 5-spot fastball. And he lived and they died on that in 0-2. He preached that the whole time. He goes, because you're forcing the hitter to make a decision. And nowadays, with these guys pitching so fast, it's like that. But back to those hanging all those pitches and everything, you're right. We're just not doing the little things. And that's all it is. It's all these little things in this game that lead up to victories. All the little things that make you go to the World Series and let you win that World Series. It's not these big home runs. Yeah, they come in clutch. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying home runs don't matter, but it's getting there. It's making that routine double play at home, not bouncing a 55 freaking foot throw and all of those things. And the inning blows up on you because the rest of your defense gets flat-footed when you start making errors like that, not doing the little things.
I don't know. Rob needs to listen to that Roger Lodge Sports Lodge introduction again, where he plays that Gibson big home run in the World Series. I don't know. Home runs make a big difference there in that moment.
Yeah, no, that one did. Yeah, I mean, hey, don't get me wrong. There's clutch home runs, but
of course,
how many home runs decide a World Series?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, well, I mean, I get 2002. There was that big home run that Spezio hit, right? I mean, that wasn't the game-winning home run, but that was certainly the momentum-shifting home run. But I get what you mean. You can probably count on one or two hands out of the hundreds of years that baseball has been going on. But let me ask you this, because you brought up the Ducks. So my ex-wife and her family were giant Ducks fans, and their last deep playoff run was like what, 2017?
Yeah.
So I remember in 2018 they made the playoffs, and I think they got bounced like first round. And I remember telling them at that moment, like, you guys need to trade everyone. Gibson still had value. Scory Perry was still Scory Perry. Kessler hadn't had that whole situation yet, off the ice. So, they had a lot of pieces that still had value. Gibby still had a lot of value before that giant contract. And I remember telling them, like, all right, if I was the Ducks, this is where you tear it down. They're like, no, you're crazy. And like, last year when, we were still together and, I was still talking with their family, I had told them like, hey, how do you feel now? And they were like, you're right. We should have just tore it down in 2018. As a Ducks fan, do you think that was kind of like the time? Like, do you have that moment now of like regret, kind of like we do as Angels fans now? Like, maybe we should have torn it down.
No, back then I thought we should have torn it down too because we had good young defensemen at the time, but they were missing the scores and goalkeeping was up and down. And once I'm a big Kessler fan because I play hockey still. I'm not as good as everyone else that skates by me. I'm a pain in the ass just like Kessler was, man. I'll get in your hip pocket right there. And once you lost that little grit from him and you kind of saw all the pieces falling around, yeah, you guys are good to make playoffs. You're going to make it every year for the next couple of years, hopefully, which was not the truth at all. But then after that, these mega contracts are coming up. These young guys are out of the rookie contracts, and you're going to lose all the value for them because there's no control over them trading for half a season for a rent a player. And we're exactly here with the Angels, like you are the Ducks, and the Ducks should have done it, but stubbornness of the Samuelis of the ownership to want to, no, we're going to make a run. We're going to make a run. I thought 17, they lost the conference finals against the Nashville Preds. We should have won that. But I honestly thought the worst one for us overall was the 15. When we were going against the Hawks, that was the time we were going to win it. And we just didn't have what it took to take out the Hawks. And then the year before that, you lost the Kings. And you kind of look, you were there contention-wise, you were 1-2 players away. But if you don't get those 1-2 players, just like the Angels, you're still those 3 pitchers away in the starting rotation. You never got those key guys. You're getting projects. You just kind of need to go all in one way. If you're going to go all in, you're going to dump all the money like the Rams. Perfect example. They knew that window was 1 or 2 years max.
Yep.
Dumped all that money in there. They came out. They got lucky. They won right there. And I'll say luck because Joe Burrow throws that touchdown pass. What's his name? Fell over. Jamar Chase wins that Super Bowl. But
absolutely,
you dump it all in or you're all out and you're rebuilding. And Artie Moreno, he's stubborn. That you guys have alluded to the whole time. He's arrogant at this point in time.
Yep.
It's no longer stubbornness, it's arrogance. Because you think this team's going to win a World Series? Could we make the playoffs? Possibly as a wild card? Yeah, but who knew Texas was going to be this good and Seattle was going to be a pain thrown in our side? And look at the AL East. Isn't their last place team better than our second place team? I mean, come on, you're going to have some issues there.
The way I see it right now, the Angels literally have the 2 options. We've already talked ad nauseum here about tearing down and rebuilding, or literally this is your year. You have to mortgage the farm to come through this year and then consider tearing it down. But once again, I don't think we're a piece or 2 away where we sit. I mean, we haven't really talked about the Marlins series, but I think it's because we're not excited to talk about it. There's nothing to talk about. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish. I'm sorry.
No, I really had nothing else to say.
Oh, well, then we'll breeze through it. We'll take on the White Sox. But all I'm going to say is they really have 3 players you had to watch out for. And Soler being the number 1 guy who was coming in red hot on a 3-game home run hitting streak. And he hit 2 more home runs in back-to-back games to start the series off. The Angels, again, couldn't finish an inning in game 1 without giving up runs. So they would score a run, give a couple right back. So that's how that game went, 6-2, a terrible loss there. And then the 8-5 Saturday game, the Marlins were trying to give us the game, and we gave them 3 errors. We came back, we tied the game, looked good, extra inning, mistakes, a dropped ball by Moniak, who everyone had been touting on, and Nevin sits Moniak for 2 straight days. He comes in there, tries to make a basket catch for whatever reason. That let the floodgates open, and had he made that catch, they only score the 1 run in that inning. Gio Urshela ties it right back up in the bottom of the 10th, but unfortunately, it was 3 more runs. They lose that game 8-5, and then yesterday's game, it was 2-0. It felt like 7-0. The Marlins were doing all the little things. Again, they were failing with runners in scoring position, and still they scored 2 runs. And the Angels put up a big goose egg, including having the tying runs on base and Trout hitting a flare, which was caught to end the game.
Yeah, some good defense really cost the Angels. I mean, you also had that Hunter Renfroe hit. It was right off the end of the bat. Could have gone over the second baseman's head, but a stellar play ended that rally. And the same thing with Trout. A stellar play ended the end of the game there. We could have been talking about a tight game, but that ball fell in.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the series just was. I mean, look, Skip Schumacher is not a household name as far as a manager, but he looked like a seasoned veteran against Nevin. Again, this coaching staff is for me getting an F so far, because with the talent we have, Bruce Bochy, again, I still believe this team is slightly better than the Rangers, and he's getting
on paper.
On paper, he's getting the most out of them because they have a cohesive, like Rob said, a mentality, a direction, and this team doesn't. And there's too much lackadaisical play on pitching and on hitting to where we're not holding guys accountable. We're not doing the small things. The fundamentals suck ass right now. The only one that's been trying to teach fundamentals is Benji Gill. When they brought it up, he's had a few before games and before batting practice workouts with the guys, extra workouts. There has to be some sort of accountability to this team, benching guys for not good play. Not just saying, hey, well, Taylor Ward's Taylor Ward, so he gets to start. No, screw that. Like there's been a lot of unconventional, just a lot of games I've watched where Nevin has just been out-managed every single time. And the hitting instructor is not really helping these guys. Because again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. They are coming in there with the same dumbass approach, whereas other teams will be like, okay, we need a couple runs. It's getting late. It's the seventh inning onward. Let's shorten up our swings. Let's try to get guys on base. Let's look for a walk. Or let's put the ball in play. And I just don't see that kind of in-game adjustment that we saw last year with, nothing happened last year, and we could kind of say, well, it was mostly talent. It was bad coaching. We get new coaches. We have better talent, and it's still the same thing. That's what's frustrating.
I go through waves all the time with Phil Nevin. I want to like the guy because he was one of my favorite childhood players. So naturally, you tend to sympathize with one of your favorite childhood players when they're struggling, in a new role as a manager. But what I will say is I'm officially, I think, at the point where I'm starting to be out on Nevin. And it's not even because he makes some bad calls. But let's take yesterday's game, for example. We ran what you would consider to be the Angels' B lineup, right? We had Renfroe sitting. You had Ward out there. You had Neto sitting. You had Wallach sitting. So we're in a situation where, like, okay, we're about to get swept. We're going to run. We're going to give some guys the day off. By the end of the game, you had your B guys out and your A guys back out there. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to give these guys the day off. No, we're about to get swept. I'm going to put these guys in. What the hell are you doing? Mm-hmm. Why even do that? Why not just run with your A squad then? What was the point of giving these guys an at-bat or two off just to put Renfroe in there? Why? Why are we sitting Moniak, who's your hottest hitter right now, instead of, putting Ward? And then Phil Nevin's like, well, this team's better if Ward's hot. Yeah, of course. This team's better if Jose Suarez is pitching like an ace. This team is better if Shohei Ohtani's hitting a home run every game. We can play the what-if game all the time, but baseball is a sport of streaks, being a hot hitter, being a cold hitter. Right now, Ward is your weakest link on the roster. You can put him with guys like Rengifo right now. They're not hitting. If a guy truly needs a day off, sure. If Mickey Moniak comes up to you and says, hey, Phil, I'm tired. Okay, that's one thing. But I doubt he's saying that right now. He's been up for a week? He's a 25-year-old kid who's riding a hot streak. I'm sure this guy can play every game for the rest of the season at this point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this team's better when Ward's hot, Phil, but he's not hot. He's not getting hot right now. Why are we putting him in these, premier spots in the lineup to try to turn it around when it's obviously not working? Ride your hot hand. Do you want to keep your job long term? It's just, I'm starting to get really frustrated with some of these calls Phil Nevin makes because he's making them cohesively at the same time.
Yeah, it's going back what you guys said, with Skip Schumacher outmanaged Nevin. You saw that clearly, especially when was it the bottom of the ninth yesterday where he brought in Wallach and then they changed pitchers on him. I knew that was coming. That was textbook high school baseball type thing. You're going to play the matchup. I'm going to wait for you to put your guy out there first and put him in the game. Then I'm going to go out there and take him out. And Skip Schumacher, he's from where I live. He's from Torrance right here. And he had this thing called the Refinery. It was a baseball workout place, right? All these people work out there. He preached one thing only: get on base. Anyway, anyhow. He didn't care. That's all he preached. And if you were struggling to catch up to a fastball and everything, crowd the plate. Let it hit you. It's okay. It won't hurt that bad. Granted, this is a little bit not major league, right? Guys throwing 100 and plus, but whatever. But you look at Nevin. What does he want from these guys in situations to come up? Because Skip Schumacher obviously had it. Hey, guy gets on second base. You're the number 8 hitter. You're bunting him over. This is why this is your role on the team. And every guy has a role, it looks like, overall. Hell, Garrett Cooper got another guy from Torrance here. He knew his role when he got up there, right? Drive the ball. That's all you need to do. Drive the ball, get in the ball in the outfield, get it up in the air, make him make a play. Moniak drops that ball. He gets benched the next couple games. And I look at it this way. A young player like that is so fragile in the mind, especially after he had a great spring training, got sent down and goes, I don't know why I was sent down. Kind of like how we did with Odell. Kind of played all these mind games with him. I'm more willing to put a guy in there who made a mistake yesterday because he's going to be hungry to come out today. I need to produce for this team. And that mentality there. And I think he has that grit. Whereas Nevin, he doesn't have that. We don't know what's going on. And to go back to Benji Gill doing work with guys, why was Patrick Sandoval so freaking good in the World Baseball Classic and not here? Because guess what? He knew what day he was going to pitch. Benji Gill came to him and said, if we win here and USA wins and we're playing Japan, game 1, that knockout round, or game 2, that knockout round, you're pitching against Japan. He knew that for a week what he was going to do. He had 4 days to prepare. 5th day went out and pitched, and he freaking pitched a gem out there. But now, like you said, he comes out, hey, you're starting Saturday. I'm kidding, you're starting Sunday. Maybe. We'll see. Whatever Shohei wants to do. No. What the frick's my plan? And Berea, oh, you're starting Wednesday. So, put the turfs on, relax today. Actually, go put your cleats on, go in the bullpen, start warming up. These guys have systems. And to what Fernando said, if it's your day off, it's your day off, period. Unless you go, coach, put me in. I want to hit. Because I think this way, too. You have a guy like Renfroe giving days off because you don't want him to get hurt. Trout, same thing. I'm more worried about a guy sitting on the bench for 2 hours, cold, than trying to get hot real quick and go in a game and getting hurt than I am for him saying, hey, I'm going to play you 1 extra day. We need to win this game today, and getting hurt. You're more likely to get hurt coming off cold off the bench like that. It just, Nevin doesn't have it. I'm a Cal State Fullerton grad myself, so I was rooting for that guy that whole time, man. I wanted him there. I thought he showed grit last year. He took accountability in New York every time he got called out for sending a runner home from third base. He accepted it. But now it's kind of like, oh, it's not me, it's the players. No, it is you. Put the players in position to succeed. This is baseball. Your whole job is to manage them. I don't care if you have freaking Jesus Christ out there himself playing baseball. If you think you see something from the outside, you need to take responsibility and manage that situation. If not, why do we have you? Just let player coaches go ahead and play, right? What's the difference at this point in time? We just need to make a decision on what we're going to do. Are we a small ball team? If we are, go ahead and start working on it. Trout gets a leadoff double. Ohtani bunt over. And that's another thing. Please switch Ohtani and Trout in the rotation. You saw in the batting order, you saw them walk Trout because guess what? Ohtani's going to strike out, especially a guy like today. I mean, we'll get into the series with Kopechek. This guy like today, 60% of the time, fastballs guaranteed. Guy throws a killer fastball. What's the other pitches? Slider in the dirt. We're going to get so many swing and misses today. I'm already seeing it. This guy walks tons of people. We'll get into that. But just looking at it overall, Buster Posey in San Fran, what was he not afraid to do? Bunt the baseball. Brandon Belt, bunt the baseball. Now, I can't think of the guy. Aubrey Huff bunted the baseball when he had to do. I don't care who you are. Runners on second base, you're down 2-0, and it's the 7th inning. Bunt the freaking ball. You're fast. It's not like Shohei Ohtani. You're not the worst bunter on the team. You're probably the best bunter on the team with the best speed on the team. Help your team succeed. Take the out for the run over at third base and try to get him in. Get 2 chances after that instead of going 3 guys, 3 up, 3 down after a leadoff double.
Hine is a catcher for the Rangers, right? He's one of their best catchers, or is their best catcher.
Jonah Heim, yeah.
Yeah. I seen him twice in the Angels series, and including another game against Atlanta, drop a bunt. And it worked every time, whether it was a sacrifice or he actually beat one out against us. So yeah, I agree and buy what Rob's selling right there. And that's a Bochy thing. And that's a manager like that. We don't have one like that.
Yeah. Phil Nevin is the manager in perhaps the biggest single Angels season possible, because no matter what happens, this season is going to define this organization for the next 10, 15, 20 years because Otani's either staying or going. And, he's a franchise changing player. So,
And to Rob's point, real quick, that was telling. I forgot all about that. I think me and you looked at each other too in the box, walking Trout to get to Otani. I mean, it's like usually if these guys are hot, you're like, pick your poison, man. Who do we go after? And the fact they went against Otani and Otani's been as bad as he's been, good grief, man. I mean,
man, they blew it right past him, man. They made him look silly that I bet.
they did.
Good morning, good afternoon, good night.
Yeah, I mean, we barely were like, they were barely announcing Shohei Ohtani. We were still clapping, and it was like, strikeout. Like, what?
It's like the old Disney cartoons with like Goofy or whatever. The ball's like coming in slowly, and he's just like swinging. He swings like 3 times before the ball gets there, and they're like, "All right, strike 3." It was just an overmatched at bat, unfortunately. And Otani's always been kind of like that. He's either really in or really out. Hot or cold, and that's fine. Once again, that's baseball. But it really makes you stop to think, like, is this guy really going to be worth what we're going to be paying him? Because it's going to be a crippling contract. We'll be talking about Trout, Ohtani, and Rendon cohesively making what, 110 to 130 million dollars combined a year, depending how much Ohtani makes. And I just have a really hard time believing the Angels can build a winning team. And for anyone who's going to get mad at me for saying that, where's the winning team been since 2020 with those 3 guys on the roster?
You really can't argue it. Like, even if I want to turn on my inner honk and be like, hey, man, how dare you say that? That's sacrilegious as an Angels fan. It's like, you can't argue it with a 500 record that we've been sporting or less the last few years.
It's been stars and scrubs for a long time. It really has been. We had touched on the Ducks a couple of times, and it was the same kind of mentality for them too, stars and script, and it worked out for them for a little while. Did they win any cups? No, but they had some deep playoff runs, and at the end of the day, that's all you could ever hope for. A deep playoff run, and once you make the dance, you either win or you don't. That's how sports work. But it has not worked for the Angels for a very, very long time. Since Trout came over, because they've tried to build the team around him, and that's no disrespect to him. He's a player worth doing that. But, once he's always had 2 large contracts around him that have crippled the franchise. Hamilton, Pujols, Trout. Trout, Pujols, Rendon. Trout, Pujols, Ohtani. Well, actually, no, because Ohtani wasn't even paid much for his first 3 years here. He was getting paid league minimum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Trout, Upton, Pujols.
Yep.
So,
well, if you guys want to move on, we can move on to the matchups with the White Sox and start talking about them. Or do you have any more points you want to touch on, Rob? Or
No, I mean, it's pretty much the same old song for us, right?
yeah. Well, let's dive into today's game, which is Michael Kopech starting for the Chicago White Sox. In 10 starts this year, he's got a 4.24 ERA. He's allowed already 12 home runs in just 57 innings pitched. So he does give up the long ball. He'll be opposed by our boy Griffin Canning. Griffin Canning comes into the game sporting in his 8th start of the year. He's 3-2 in 36 innings pitched with a 4.95 ERA. Real quick on the White Sox lineup, they're sporting Anderson, Benintendi, Robert Jr., Jimenez, Moncada, Vaughn, Sheets, Gonzalez, and Zavela as a catcher. So their bottom 4 guys are batting .250 or below. What are your thoughts on this game? Or do you think we win this one versus Kopech?
I mean, the fact that the bottom of their lineup isn't amazing doesn't help us very well. Normally, the number 9 hitters are the guys who beat us.
That's what I'm saying. It's a catch-22.
For us, absolutely. Griffin Canning looked, had arguably the best start of his career, his last outing. Really, right now, for me, it's going to all depend on the offense. It really is. If the offense can stay hot, or the offense can get hot, sorry, maybe we win this game. But unfortunately, with the way they looked flat yesterday, I'm going to have to go with it's going to be a loss. I think Canning's going to pitch well, but I just don't think we're going to be able to pull this one out.
What you got, Rob?
It just depends on the discipline at the plate today. I mean, honestly, like I was saying earlier, this guy walks a lot of guys. There's predominantly fastball, and we like to look at fastball for some odd reason and chase those sliders. That's a secondary pitch, his out pitch. I mean, he has a slider, he has a curveball and a changeup he rarely throws. But looking at his 10 games that he's pitched, the last 2 games, it was 67% fastball, 70% fastball. So this guy, if you get on him, you got to jump on him early. And like I said before, that Trout has 0-0 counts. Fastball down the middle, swing. But honestly, with Canning pitching as well as he did last time, and the team right now seems like a all-time low for the season. And I see a loss today because I see us not making adjustments. And then all depends what Nevin does too, man. Every time they're going to throw a lefty out there, going to put a right-handed hitter up or vice versa, and keep switching around and playing these matchups. I'm not a big guy on these matchups. Oh, if you're a lefty, you can't hit a lefty. Says who? Yeah. How did Tony Gwynn succeed? How did Ted Williams succeed? How did all these other guys? So every time a righty comes up, we're going to bench Trout too.
Well, it's also funny that those two guys you brought up were pure hitters. The Angels, where we currently stand, I don't think have any pure hitters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to dive pretty deep to think of the last time the Angels had a pure hitter.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe throw Yunel Escobar's name on there, and I know everyone's like, "Oh, here we go talking about Escobar," but Escobar was a pure hitter. He was a 280 to 315 kind of guy.
Yeah.
Besides that,
Gio right now, to be honest, he's consistent.
Yeah, Gio's probably the only guy. Yeah,
driving the ball the way it's coming.
Yeah, I like it. He's a type of hitter that has the mentality of like, hey, they're going to give me a fastball, I'm going to drive it. They're going to pitch me outside, I'm going to poke it to right field.
Neto.
Yeah,
he's been proving lately that he's a pure hitter. He doesn't try to do too much. I mean, 3 home runs? Great. He's starting to show a little bit of power, and which we all kind of knew he would as he got a little more comfortable. But he hits the ball the way it's coming. He's proven to be a slapper as well.
Mm-hmm. On 2, did you guys notice in the Marlins series where Skip Schumacher pulled his pitcher aside with the pitching coach when Neto came up to bat? They had him slide step twice to throw off his timing with that huge leg kick. They're finding ways around him now because that huge leg kick is going to hurt him. He needs to have one batting stance and one stance only. Get rid of that huge leg kick because I don't care. You're not Willie Mays Hayes. I don't need you to hit a home run every time you come at bat. Yep. Drive that ball because teams are making adjustments to you. I do agree he could be a pure hitter, but if teams are going to do that to you and throw your timing off, that huge leg kick is based off of what? Time. Guy has a high leg kick, then all of a sudden he does a slide step on you with nobody on. The guy did a slide step. I was like, was that a quick pitch? I was like, no, it was a slide step. They're starting to beat him at his own game a little bit. So,
and we saw that when Ohtani first came over from Japan, they were making him look silly during spring training in 2018 because Ohtani also had that massive leg kick. And I think it was right before that first game, before opening day in Oakland, he adjusted from a long leg kick to just that little toe tap he does. And we've seen Neto do that occasionally, I believe, on 2 strike counts. And he seems to do okay when he just does the toe tap. But, that's up to Neto. He needs to make that adjustment as a major leaguer. I understand it's worked for him up to this point. But as a major leaguer, you can't be prideful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he could, his average has been rising up, but dude, he could be a lot better, like you guys said, if he didn't have that high leg kick. So I'm also going to agree with you right there. I think they take the loss, and it's unfortunate because Texas just freaking shut out their opponent 5-0 Detroit. So we're 6.5 out currently speaking. So that would set up tomorrow's game: Lucas Giolito versus Tyler Anderson. And Giolito he'll be going for his 12th start. He's 3-4 with a 3.98 ERA. He has allowed 9 home runs in those 11 starts prior to this one. And let's get back here to Tyler Anderson's numbers here. Tyler Anderson is in his 9 starts, he's just got a record of 2-0 because we like to give out no decisions to our starters. He's got a 4.81 ERA. It's been gradually coming down, as Rob mentioned. But how do you guys see this one playing out, Giolito versus Anderson?
If you look at Giolito's numbers verbatim, they don't sound very impressive. But when you look at his Baseball Savant page, his whiff percentage is 59th percentile, so not bad. He doesn't have a lot of velocity anymore. He's a 93-mile-an-hour fastball kind of guy, and he's throwing his fastball 47% of the time, and it's a fastball up in the zone. We have a lot of our big hitters struggling with that fastball up in the zone. Trout's gotten a little bit better, but the thing that I'm really looking at here is his whiff and his chase rate are very respectable. He only throws his fastball 1% of the time, but if you look at his Baseball Savant page, he has he has a lot of success on that curveball in the dirt. Our guys love to chase curveballs down in the dirt, and that's what terrifies me. But the only kind of saving grace we have here is his changeup down in the middle part of the zone is getting barreled extremely heavy. Who's really good at fast or a changeup and curveballs down in the zone? Mike Trout loves the changeup and really any breaking pitch down at the knees. So if a guy like Trout can sit on that pitch down at the knees, he can have some success. And I think Giolito would challenge a guy like Trout with a changeup down in the zone on the first pitch because he knows that Trout's not going to swing at that. And then Trout's going to start sitting changeup, and that's when he's going to make him look silly on a fastball up in the zone. So if Trout can make an adjustment like that, or if he can swing changeup first pitch, I think we might be talking about a good night for the Angels. So if the Angels can make that kind of adjustment, I think we can have success that day against Giolito and get a win.
Okay.
I'm going to agree with that, too. I agree. I mean, Giolito's coming off a tough loss against Detroit, right? He gave up 6 runs last outing. He beat a Kansas City team who wasn't too good, right? Granted, I know they were pitching a perfect game at some point today, but that got blown up. But no, with Anderson, I mean, he's turning that corner. I was wrong. I wasn't big out of him at spring training. I voiced that opinion that he needed to make adjustments. He was failing to. His swing and miss rate wasn't there. He wasn't executing those pitches in the proper zones, setting guys up, and he's kind of turned that corner a little bit. He looked good against Boston there, and hopefully today. Tomorrow, sorry. We'll see a little bit better from him.
Yeah, I like Anderson in this matchup as well. And I think the White Sox, their bullpen's been very suspect. So, and their hitting has been much like ours, which has been off and on. So I'm going to go with the Angels in this one. I think Giolito doesn't get the support, and I think the bullpen doesn't help him out either. And we get a nice little win there. So 1-1. Let's see if we can get the Rally Chris special. It'll be Lance Lynn getting the start. He'll be going for his 12th start. He's 4-5. He had an absolute terrible start to the season. He's pitched better of late. He's allowed 12 home runs in 63 and a third innings pitched. He has almost a 6 ERA at 5.83. But his last couple starts have been pretty decent. And he'll be opposed by a guy who's been yanked more than a yo-yo through this organization, Jaime Vieira. He's 1-1. Or 1-2, and he's got a 1.55 ERA, making his second start. His only start was that 5 innings of shutout ball he pitched.
I like Jaime. I've liked him since he made his rookie season was 2018, I believe.
Yes.
I've always been a fan of him. I just wish he would have a home in the organization where he has a legitimate role. Like you said, man, the guy's getting thrown around more than a gigolo in Buena Park. And
back to that, huh?
I'll find a new one at some point, but as of right now, that's the hot hand.
It's a good one, though. You got to play it.
Yeah, but I don't want to keep my jokes going like Grill Master.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I like Jaime. I think he continues to prove that he has a home here in this rotation. Unfortunately, we're getting near the end of him becoming a free agent. So there's going to have to be a decision made on him. He might be somebody who has some trade value, especially if a guy like Ohtani gets shipped off. But yeah, I think we get a win here. So call me crazy. I'm calling the Rally Chris special.
Okay. Rob?
I'm the same. Rally Chris special here. I think Bria's been pitching really well. I think he has a lot to prove for himself out there, that he belongs in this rotation and in the organization itself. And he's going out there and showing it. And every day is an audition for him at this point in time. And for him, it's the point not to go back to Salt Lake or that long reliever position in the bullpen, because that's a miserable spot to be in, right? You go in there when you're getting blown out by a lot or up by a lot, you don't really feel like you're making a difference in the team, right? Contending wise and all that stuff. So I think he wins and helps us out and kind of puts us in the spot where we kind of need to make a decision on what we're going to do with this rotation. Is he staying or is he going? And I think he stays, right, at the end of the day, and you got to move forward with him.
Yeah, I hope so as well. I think this is the one game I'm going to preach launch angle with a fastball movement, and if he doesn't have his his secondary pitches, he's going to be relying heavily on that fastball. And it seems like we love to hit home runs and look for the fastball first. Hopefully, Mike Trout can catch up to one, maybe Ohtani as well. But I do like Jaime keeping the ball down. His movement's been sick out of the pen and as a starter. So I like him too. I'm also going to go for the Rally Chris special in this one. So 2 out of 3.
Okay.
against the White Sox.
For the record, I did look it up. So he's a free agent after the 2025 season. So he still has 2 more years of control. So, we could be talking about a guy who we probably should move at the deadline if come the end of July, even if we're at a point where we can make a trade, I think Jaime Barria would have some decent return if he's still hot at that time. He's been a pretty decent pitcher throughout his career, and with 2 years of control, that's very appealing to teams, especially a team like the Rays, who have some pieces they might be okay with trading away because those guys are going to get a little more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, he could fill in start for them. He could be a valuable bullpen piece come playoff time for anybody, really.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to move on to, or do you guys have any other thoughts?
I mean, I think that's really about it, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about the Marlins series. There wasn't too much to talk about. One thing I do want to talk about was I finally went to Noble. We should probably talk about that because they're our sponsor. We haven't shouted them out yet. Good family friendly environment. There was some kids there. There were some families there. They had some good barbecue. They had some great beers. Definitely worth checking out. I enjoyed it, and I'm not a big brewery guy. I don't typically like breweries, but I like the vibe. I like the environment.
Yeah, we'll add some swag there, and then it'll be worth it. Because again, anytime you guys go, or gals or families or whatever, for beers anyway, for the adults, they can take $1 off just by mentioning Halos in the Infield, and they have also specials that you could call out after the seventh inning of any game that you're watching there. After the seventh inning, you can say Halos in the Infield and buy one get one free. So I mean, come on, you can't beat that on pints. And they have all kinds of good beers. They have also seltzers. Well, until they last. I mean, the one ran out. They had a mango tahine that ran out right before we got there. So
Darn it, I would have loved to try that one.
yeah. So there's different beers they have. They have cereal ones like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Everyone seemed to like.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely shout them out. And I'm glad you brought that up, Fernando. One more thing I was going to ask you though. Before we got out of here, your guys' thoughts on the youth movement in the bullpen. We now have Bachman up. We now have Silseth up, obviously. And we just called up Joyce. You guys like that?
Exciting for these young kids, sure. Awesome to see, these young guys getting a chance. But if I would have told you guys that these guys would all be up cohesively at the same time 2 months into the season, we all would have said, oh, God. Because that tells us that we're getting stretched pretty thin. So I'm definitely very worried about the state of our bullpen. This could very well work out. We saw it work out for the Brewers when they got guys like Corbin Burns up, for these bullpen roles, and now he's one of the best starters in baseball. So this could very well work out in that department. Obviously, Ben Joyce isn't a starter, but Bachman is. But I'm not crazy about it. I think it's a little terrifying that these guys are up when they're up, but we don't really have a choice right now. Just says a lot where we are.
I'm gonna go the opposite way on that. I'm happy to see it because these guys need to get innings in, and I don't care if you're in Double A, Triple A, or Major League Baseball. You're still pro baseball, right? You need to see what you have out there, and this is your time because there's plenty of guys who come in and succeed at a young age, like Zach Neto, right? This guy last year is playing at Campbell University. They're in the super regionals or in the regionals, right? Playing in. Would you say would be when he got drafted last year? Oh, hey, he's going to be our starting shortstop next year. I never would have said that, but at the same time, I'm for it because baseball's baseball. Reps are reps. At the end of the day, you just have to have that short-term memory, right? What is that Ted Lasso thing? Why is the goldfish the best pet? Has a 10-second memory. I don't know if you guys saw Ted Lasso. Yeah. Go ahead, be a goldfish, right? Be out here, have a short-term memory, right? Go ahead, execute each pitch by pitch. Forget about the last batter and do what you got to do in the situations. You looked at our bullpen; we were in desperate need of everything because Chris Davinsky right now is looking like one of our stronger arms. Just picked him up right out of the minor leagues. Aaron Loop, dead arm. Ryan Tepera, dead arm. Looking at it overall, and there's just a lot of guys who aren't there. And I don't think Chase Silseth is the answer in the bullpen. He's a starting pitcher. We're screwing with his mindset as well too, putting him in the bullpen. I'd rather see a younger guy who's known, like Ben Joyce, in the bullpen to go ahead. Hey, you're our guy here, And with the stupid rest things that we're doing, freaking Nevin, you can't pitch 2 days or 3 days in a row, whatever it is, as a closer. You lose Estevez there, you lose your power arm. But now you have Ben Joyce going up there. So if I go in there, I can go ahead and throw a Aaron Loop in there for a couple, right, at 89, 90 miles per hour. And then Ben Joyce, flamethrower, go in there. You're going to throw timing off. It's all about that. It's what you have setting up, in my opinion. That's what I think. How you set up other hitters and other batters. How many times did you see the Marlins change pitchers mid-inning? No reason. Just to change the look of the pitch. The guy threw 3/4, one guy threw up over the top with a downward angle. It confuses the batters a little bit, just seeing something different. And I don't care if those iPads are there. Yeah, you can see it, but it's nothing like seeing it live. And when you see a live pitcher that's different than anybody else, you're going to get a different look overall, because we can't rely on Jacob Webb, right? I don't think he's been too good. He's been decent. Has he been good? No. It's just nice to see these younger guys come in with experience. It's not like they're out of high school. You guys are out of college. They've had experience. They know what it's like to play in a loud place and loud situation. Ben Joyce did it. Silseth did it. Zach Neto did it at Campbell. I mean, they're not – college sports have changed a lot, right? College baseball is pretty big nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
So that's – I mean, I think it's a good thing overall. We need it, because what are you going to do? Tucker Davidson again. I mean, all these other guys just going through. These guys are starters, and you're putting them in bullpen situations. And I'll speak from my experience myself. I was a starter my whole life. I got the college. They put me in the bullpen. I struggled like no other. I had the starter mentality. It took me forever to get ready. I could never make the adjustments. Ego and selfishness was a huge part of that. Don't get me wrong. Immaturity, which I clearly displayed the whole entire time. But these guys are going to find the same thing, because at the end of the day, if you're Ben Joyce and you walk up, you see Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, you're not going to be amazed. Come on. You guys are just watching these guys. So little things like that. But I think the youth movement is what's needed, because how's Tampa Bay getting by? How are all these other teams, Oakland, getting by? To get this youth movement coming in, the guy does well, keep him for 3 or 4 years, ship him out, get a huge youth movement in return for that one player, and then you're good. You're set up for another 5 years.
That's the hope, that they can all click, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's what we're talking about the pitching. It's going to be a wait and see mentality, and unfortunately, like the youth movement, they're not going to come in like Frankie Rodriguez. They're going to take their lumps, and we're just going to have to be patient with them. If it's, it's one thing if it's a Tepera and a Loop, like you said, they're veterans, they know better. But we're going to have to see and watch, learn, and listen as we go along here. So, as we wrap it up, any final thoughts? I'm pretty much done for this episode as well.
No, I guess the last thing I wanted to say was thank you to the listeners who I saw tweeting things about, like 714 tickets, for instance, like the UK account, Angels UK or whatever.
Angels UK, yeah.
He needed tickets for the game, and we were getting tagged like, oh hey, 714 tickets, use the code HITTY. So I just wanted to thank the audience for for doing that for us. That's awesome. It lets us know that A, people are aware, B, people care, and that people just care about the page overall. So thank you to the listeners who try to help out a fellow fan.
There you go. All right, so for Todd, Fox, Fernando, and Rob, have a good one, guys, and go Angels.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.